Hi everyone, Michelle Patient here with this week's tip, again on DNA, for the last week of May 2026. So today I'm going to talk about matching other people, that shared match service, and some tips for you about that. So basically, people you share DNA with are some sort of relative on the whole. There are things called false positives. So don't forget that with your smaller matches. Let's talk about that lower hanging fruit, the larger matches to you. So you're matching other people who've tested at the same company and are in the larger global database, not just the people in the server you belong to, whether that's UK or Canada or America or Germany or Sweden or Australia and New Zealand. So it doesn't matter which server you've done this service through, you'll be compared to the global population of people who've tested at Ancestry. The main key thing I want to talk about really to help you understand better is to understand how you inherit your segments, therefore understanding what your matches are telling you. So I hope you all remember that you get one whole chromosome from your mum and one from your dad, but they have to get them from somewhere and they have two of each. So they do a process called recombination. And when a chromosome pair recombines to give one unique chromosome to the ovum that's being formed, it's a combination of segments from each grandparent. Now, while a child gets exactly 50% from mum and 50% from dad, because of that recombination process, a lot of people call it like stirring up the fruit salad, you can get anywhere between 14 and 37% from each grandparent. A grandparent couple will add up to 50%, but you, for instance, might have got 14% of one grandparent and 36% from the other. So you'll get different matches. To make it a little simpler for you, this is one of my favourite images. I can still remember when Ancestry first released this some years ago, and I got permission to share it way back then in my talks. And I just love this kind of easy to understand how segments as blocks of our DNA get passed down to us. And conveniently, all these people have 6 letters in their name, so that 50% passing down each time just becomes a little bit easier to show on a screen. The two key things to me in this diagram, and there's a live version of it now, so you can actually go to the link and watch the whole process, which is even far more intuitive and visual and more clearly explained than a static image like this. But the bottom line is you as children can't inherit from a grandparent what your parent didn't inherit. So if you all have a look at the maternal grandfather up there, Graham, he has an H in his letter, which is yellow. Now, his daughter Angela didn't get that, and that means none of those children did either. The other thing to bear in mind is that those 4 children have very different sets of segments than each other because they're not identical twins. They all have an E in them, but whose E is it? Is it the E from their paternal grandfather and wherever he inherited it from some generations back? Or have they got their maternal grandmother's E from the beginning of the word Elaine, and that's come from some generations back? Or have they got the E from the end of her name, which came from a different branch? Or has all 3 of them got one of each? So their match sets will be different, and that's why it's really good to actually test your siblings if you can. For the geeks in you who want to look at a little bit more, this is what the pairs look like under certain lighting at very fine detail, and you'll see there's 22 pairs. So that recombination process happens right across your genetic chromosomes here. And the only thing the numbers mean is 1 is longer than 2 is longer than 3, and 22 is the shortest ones. We're not going to talk about the gender pair at the end here, or the sex chromosomes as some call them. So the testing is done on that first 22 pairs because you inherit that from all of your ancestors in some way, shape or form, but not every single one of them. So yes, you will be related to people 10 generations back from you, but there's a 64% chance you didn't get any of their segments. So again, it's that recombination, that fruit salad process that means you get exactly 100% from your parents, and you carry DNA definitely from your grandparents, and you definitely have it from your great-greats, and you right up to your, 5 generations back. But you start to lose the ability to get bits from everybody. And I still remember Blaine Bettinger saying, otherwise you'd be a DNA blob. So just bear in mind, it means this is a test with a limit. You can only really guarantee to go back so many generations in your matches because you're not going to share identical segments to many other people. And we'll look at that in another diagram as well. So let's look at my matches and that DNA summary page. And there's my third report along is what we're going to have a brief look at today under my match list. If I click on that third report, I have permission to show my mum's name, which is great, so I don't have to privatise this page. But the key thing is that you might not have seen before that green button, and that means that I have connected her test to the tree because I manage her DNA. So those little symbols mean you've done a connection between your DNA match and the tree that you have linked your DNA to, if you've linked your DNA to a tree. Some services will not be apparent to you unless you have linked to a tree. Let's look at something slightly more removed, though, than my mum, a smaller match. So whereas in the first slide, DNA is called my mother, there's a definitive 50% she is my mother, so it's not a predicted relationship, it's a factual one. These relationships, as soon as you step beyond mum, they are predicted and not necessarily the only possible one. So I encourage you all, if you've never done this, to click on the blue highlighted link for the amount, the predicted relationship, and have a look. And you'll see at the top it's telling you the centimorgans are 135 centimorgans, and it's a predicted relationship at second cousin once removed. But there's a frequency with a drop-down arrow. Please click on the drop-down arrow because even in the predicted relationships, you can see there's actually 4 possibilities. So our common ancestors might be a generation further back than that second cousin once removed. And if they're halves, it could be just one side of my family. There's things I need to investigate thoroughly to confirm this relationship. And because I've said just click on that down arrow, and now you have a scroll down as well, you can see that it's only 44% of the time in the data sets that they have from all of us testing. Oh, there's all these other relationships that are possible. And if I scroll down, I could be as distant to this person as fourth cousin, which is my great-great-great-grandparents. So I have to build back on their lineage, build trees back to work our genetic match. Many more generations than I might have thought if it was just my second cousin or second cousin once removed. And you'd be surprised how often the match, I've been doing a lot of work lately and getting in these low predicted possibilities rather than the most obvious one at the top. But because I keep telling you to always read the whole screen and scroll down, we're going to finish doing this bit and then move on to something a little bit more less reading and wordy. So here's the next piece to drop down on, how they do the work. And all of this is something I would encourage you, if you haven't done it before, my tip is to go and do it on your matches and have a good read about what the backstory is to how this record is useful to you, how this record was created and what it means to you. For instance, centimorgans is not a linear feature. You don't need to think about how it's developed. It's just that you have a total amount shared, and that predicts a relationship and therefore how much further back your common ancestor is. And if I go to the last one, it even talks to me about I need other evidence to support or contradict these predictions of relationship. So I need to do tree building, which is what we all love doing. And we need different sources of evidence, and other possible relationships may be considered. In other words, all of this is predicated on you having one set of common ancestors. And I'll show you more on that later. The amount of shared relationships, this table is a citizen science project that many of us have worked on over the years. It's a static image I'm showing you from the report, and you can see that apart from a narrow specific range for like parents and grandparents, you start to find there's commonalities that many people will fit the same amount if you have a good look at all those numbers. And you don't have to go too far to start finding that you may share 0 DNA. So you may not share any matching segments with your third cousins, for instance. That grey, if you look at the self line at the same level, you'll see you go to 0 that quickly. So I thought I'd show you the website as a tip that I like to use, and it's a free website to use where Johnny Pearl, as part of his DNA Painter service, has the free shared centimorgan tool. So if I put Anne's 135 centimorgans in here and fill it in, it lovely greys out all the things that aren't possible given that amount, assuming it's a single couple that we share as common ancestors. And I can look at this and go, well, I know my age, and I've been able to work out Anne's age based on her profile. I know quite a few of those positions that are above my parent level are not possible just based on our tree construction or just based on our age and where we are on the planet in terms of time. I also know I can look at the people below me, and I know it was a maternal match. I know that my mother had no other children except me. So there's no chance for a sibling or a half sibling. So if I followed down that grey box, and you'll see at the bottom half GG niece or nephew is a possibility. I know that's impossible because there are no other siblings from my maternal side alive, let alone any that could have had great-grandchildren. So some of these positions I don't need to think about researching and seeing if there's branches on Anne's tree that match. And if you like the geeky science stuff, back on the Johnny Pearl's site, if I literally click on second cousin once removed, there's even the histograms of the data sitting behind the screen. And for many of you, you'll find this of interest. I'm a more visual person, and as much as I did statistics at university, I know that I can trust all these other people that did this citizen science project. So I don't always click on here unless it feels like a really strange outlier, and it then makes me question what else is going on here. So getting back to that basic screen at the front, the other tip that I have is that some people like to hide matches. They get sick of this long list of matches. And you might have noticed the 3 dots on the right-hand side. And if you click on those 3 dots, it's where you can A, message the match, or B, hide them from your list. And you come back a month later and you think, where did I put them? Did I have a match? Well, you can check for that in your filters, and you can literally select hidden matches so that you can reveal all those people that you hid before. And if you went back to the 3 dots, you'd be able to unhide them again. But as I said before, that shared centimorgan prediction for the amount of DNA indicating the relationship you have to this person is predicated on the fact that you don't have recent pedigree collapse, and therefore extra DNA, you get a higher shared amount. So here's my cousin Shirley, who sadly passed away in 2023, but she very, very kindly did do her DNA to add to our tree research. And you'll see that her grandparents were first cousins. So she shares a lot more DNA with people in the Moody Marks family than other people do, because she actually shares 2 lines of DNA. And for most people, if you really do need to make sure that you build back all lines of a matches tree to make sure you don't have this situation or a pioneer effect where, unbeknownst to you, another distant cousin of yours also happened to marry into their family on another branch. So you always need to check back on all the lines to see if you've got a single common ancestor or not. There's a great help page as usual, and I'll show you exactly how to find that towards the end, but there's lots of question marks everywhere, so you can always click on those. The link to this section of other topics around matches is going to be in the description when you just scroll down and have a look at that. So my last tip is about the confusion people get with their shared match list. So if you have a person you share DNA with, you can be descended from the same couple as you and your match. But the people in the list may be, or they might be descended just from one side of that couple. In other words, that common ancestors, cousins or siblings, aunts and uncles, and not actually from the same couple as you. And because of that, not everyone in a shared match list are related to each other. Can be hard to get your head around, so let's have a look at an example. Here's me off my grandmother Ethel, and I was very fortunate to find my grandmother's first cousin Olive alive and also happened to do a DNA test. Their common ancestor is Ethel and Olive's grandparents, John and Elizabeth Jones. Nothing like a Jones to research. So if I click on myself and Olive and look at Olive's shared match list with me, we may be all people that are descended from the Jones and Hurley family, or they may be people descended from the Reeds and O'Briens, or they may be people descended from the Joneses and the Reeds and therefore descended from our common ancestor. So I hope that helps you understand a shared match list. The other thing is there's a link again in the notes. We've covered in the previous tip and this tip those regions and journeys, which it doesn't matter whether you have a subscription to the tree or not, you can see all those. And the same with the traits. If you look further down on this page that's in the notes about what you can get for your DNA test, you'll see that when we start to look at shared matches, that you have a limited unless you have a subscription to of some level, even the basic level, to the records, because DNA in itself is a record and you're asking to look at people's trees. So you get a view and it is still useful, but you might want to take up a monthly subscription just to dig deeper for a short period of time, particularly if you look further down the list. And next tip we go next week, no, a couple of weeks' time, the tip will be including through lines and common ancestors. So you need a subscription to see those. So thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back again next Friday with another tip. No webinar next Friday. Thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great time investigating your DNA. Don't forget to put your comments or questions into the comments below. Bye.